Hi Year 6, welcome to the writing lesson for Thursday. Now in this lesson we're going to be planning our own fairy tale. So hopefully you've listened to and watched a bunch of the videos for Book Week and heard loads of fairy tales and legends. Now in Year 6 we've been focusing on the Knight of York, and you hopefully would have heard also Mr. York and I's in conversation lesson for the reading lesson. So you should be pretty familiar with that story. Now the trick with fairy tales is that pretty much all of them, including legends and including some films you might watch, follow a very similar pattern of storytelling. And in your packs, I've listed some stages of a story to help you plan. Now today's all about planning. And so it doesn't need to be long sentences, they're just short sentences written into those boxes, or you do subheadings on, if you haven't printed it, you can do subheadings in your yellow book as well. Just planning out your story. At the end of this session, you should have the framework of a story that you should be able to tell that story. And so the best way to check that a story makes sense is to tell it and retell it. Just like you did for the reading lesson, for the summarising lesson, have a go at telling the story to a member of your family and see if they can tell it back to you. And often in that process, especially if you do it a few times, you can make the story really make logical sense. And so today is just about planning, just a few notes or even a couple of pictures in each one will be fine for today, so not too much writing. Tomorrow you'll be doing some writing. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is to build the world. And so you want to place, now think about fairy tales, they all have this similar type of setting. So it's a bit like a shorthand, it's a sort of storytelling. And so the first thing you want to do is establish that setting. Now that can be as simple as saying a long time ago in the county of Cornwall. You know, for example, if you've watched Mr. Seakin's video on his Cornish legend, or you may want to say something like a long time ago in an ancient city by the sea. And so just in a few words, you've helped your reader visualize where that setting is. Fairy tales are short, legends are short. The tradition of these types of stories is they're told verbally around a campfire or something. So they're not big, long stories. They keep your sentence, you've got to keep it brief. So establish the world and then your characters. Now there's a reason why I got you to develop the characters first in this week, and the language around those characters is if you have really good characters, the story almost writes itself. You just have really strong characters. If you've got this character who is really brave and loves to climb, you're thinking, okay, maybe the first thing he does is climb a cliff or something. It sort of helps you write the story. So world building characters, just a few notes on that. And the other trick I want to share with you with storytelling is the first character that you introduce your audience to is often the one the audience has the greatest connection to. And so you want the first character, or at least one of the first characters that you mention in your story to be the main character. For example, that would be the girl in the Knight of York. That's the main character going all the way through. And you want that character to want something. They're quite comfortable at the moment, but they do want something. For example, that family at the beginning, they love their family, but they wish they could provide a little bit more for them. And then a shocking event happens to trigger the story. In the Knight of York turns up and says, I can give this new baby a really good life. So that's the shocking event that happens. But as we know from the story, the twist is he doesn't really want to give that character a good life. See, it's often fairy tales have an evil character, have like a bit of a baddie in there. It might be a witch, or it might be an ogre or a troll, or this evil knight in the Knight of York. And so that shocking event needs to kickstart the story. So you establish the world, you've got the characters, everything's fine, but the characters kind of want something, then something shocking to motivate your main character to go off on a quest or to have a go at doing something. Or maybe an evil character comes in and curses, a bit like in Maleficence, where she comes in and Sleeping Beauty, she comes in and curses that child that when she reaches adulthood, she falls asleep, for example. So some shocking event happens. And then you want to introduce a bit of, it's all quite dark at the moment, it's all quite scary. But then you want a sort of comic relief. You want the character coming along. Maybe they can be skipping along, they can be whistling, and they can say maybe save that character. And that character goes far from home, so they go on like a sort of journey, a bit like the girl is now is with another family. And then you want to come full circle and have a reunion. So think about maybe that evil character does something at the beginning of your story and then goes away. but then they meet up when they're older, just like in The Knight of York. So maybe your main character then grows up, maybe they start off as 9 or 10 or 11, and then they grow up into an adult, and that's when they meet that character from the beginning. And then you want the evil character to have some kind of comeuppance. So they want to learn their lesson. For example, in The Knight of York, this is when the knight learns his lesson right when she reveals the ring at the end. So you may want to have maybe a harsher lesson. Maybe they really learn their lessons somehow. Maybe that your main character grows up and becomes really strong and then goes back and teaches that evil person a lesson or something like that. But then almost always with fairy tales and legends, they have a happy ending. Almost always. So try and have a happy ending for yours. Maybe your evil character understands something new. Maybe that character flaw that they had at the beginning is somehow resolved. So maybe they've learned a new way of thinking. Maybe that person that they cursed at the beginning of the story, and when they've grown up, teaches them a lesson. And so in a weird kind of way, that cursing of that character ends up teaching them a lesson at the end. And then for example, the Knight of York had to become less greedy and realise the error of his ways. And so try and have some kind of happy ending to your video, to your story as well. Okay, I hope that helps. Once you finish this lesson, have a go at telling your parents or your siblings or whoever is in your house to tell your story and try and get them to tell it back to you. You want to be as ready as you possibly can for tomorrow's writing. With that plan, you don't really want to be having to think too much of the plot as you write. You've got to be thinking of the language you're using. And all these lessons, just like they would in school, have built up to this writing lesson on Friday. So you should be turning back to previous work to get ideas and have a thesaurus at the ready as well. If you like your story, it'd be great if you can share it on Padlet. If you click the plus, you can even record yourself telling the story on Padlet. So we just hear your voice, that'd be amazing. Or you may want to just share your character, saying my evil character is some kind of witch or something like that. Share it on Padlet because it's really good to hear what you're all up to. Thank you.